Hi, my name is Moses. I'm a psychology major at Our Lady of the Lake University, and I'm a senior. I was born and raised in Atwood, a small barrio in Southern California. While growing up in the 1970s, I loved listening to the music of classic Chicano rock such as Santana, Tierra, Malo, and War, as well as classic rock like the Eagles and Chicago. I enjoyed growing up in a small town where everyone knew each other. I enjoyed living and attending the lowrider classic car shows of the 1970s. I have a small history of performing at the car shows back in the day. After my performing history, at age 19, I became a dad. I married and we had a son. With having my son and expecting another child on the way, I joined the Army to support my family. While serving a 4-year term in the Army, my wife and I divorced after 2 years. Almost a year later, while stationed at Fort Hood, Texas, I met my beautiful wife of 30 years, Rosemary. Rosemary was divorced with 3 daughters from a previous marriage, and I had 2 children. We met in San Antonio one night by divine providence. While stationed at Fort Hood, and with 1 more year left in the Army, and Rosemary living in San Antonio, we dated for a year. Then we were married at the end of my service term. After 30 years, we are still married and enjoy each other. So, how did we meet? How did this divine providence happen? Well, I can still remember that day in April. I was stationed at Fort Hood, and a friend of mine picked me up from Austin Airport after coming home from my leave in California. He took me to his home in San Antonio after having no choice but to go with him since he was my ride back to Fort Hood. The next day, April 20th, he took me to Fiesta, an event that I've never been to. That evening, he took me to La Villita downtown. This is where I met my soulmate. When our eyes met and our paths crossed, we both began to talk to each other. We had dinner at Mi Tierra and listened to the music of the mariachis. After that night, I asked her for her phone number and called her during the week. I used to wait in line at the payphone in the barracks, along with having many quarters in my pocket just to pay for the calls. So I began to write letters to her, even when I was in the field. On weekends, I would take the 2.5-hour Greyhound bus ride from Fort Hood to San Antonio just to date her. After 1 year and completing my 4-year term in the Army, we were married. Our wedding day. Our wedding day was different. We decided to go downtown to the courthouse to get married. And on June 1st, 1985, we left our small apartment to get married. I had on an old suit and old coat with pants and tennis shoes. Rosemary wore a nice dress that she had in her closet. After letting her family know that morning that we were getting married, later that afternoon, her family had a small wedding ceremony prepared for us at her parents' house. When we arrived, they already had a pastor to marry us, a small wedding dinner, and a wedding cake. We also had our 5 children with us for the ceremony. At the time, our children were between the ages of 2 to 6 years old, and we became yours, mines, together. Now, as a family of 5 with yours and mines, my wife and I decided to have a child together. So at age 30, we became a family of yours, mines, and ours. Our family had expanded. 30 years later, we have 6 adult children, ages 23 to 35, and 11 grandchildren. In closing, my wife and I have had a beautiful beginning of how divine providence brought this young man from California to a beautiful young woman from San Antonio together, along with having a blended family of yours, mine, and ours. We've had our life struggles and challenges and have learned so much from it over the 30 years. However, God has sustained us and maintained us and keeping us going on through all the things that we have learned in life and in marriage. Thank you.